Welcome to What Lies Ahead. I'm your host, Chris Raffini, lead singer of the Long Island band Overthrow. On my podcast, I explore everything related to the hardcore scene through the eyes of artists, promoters, and record labels. As always, please like or subscribe on all social media platforms. For more information and updates, check out our Instagram page at @WhatLiesAhead_podcast and find us on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead. Now, on to the show. Today, I'm joined by Ricky Singh, the co-owner of Flatspot Records, manager of Matinee Sounds, and was the guitarist of the influential hardcore band Backtrack. Flatspot has put out records from bands like Scowl, Zulu, Jive Bomb, End It, and Speed, and has become one of the biggest labels to come out of the hardcore and alternative scenes right now. We'll talk about running our label, his management company, his time with Backtrack, and what's in store for the future. Ricky, what's going on, man? Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it. I'm psyched for this.
Oh yeah, oh for sure, man. And a lot to talk. There's so many different things to talk about here. I guess we'll start from the beginning, obviously with the stuff that I mentioned, but we have to start from the beginning, which we were talking about what we were talking about before we actually got on here. So we lived in very close proximity growing up. I know you were born in Queens, but then you moved out to Long Island,
Yeah.
in Hicksville, right? And I was a Plainview guy, so we were very close. So why don't you talk a little bit about life in Hicksville growing up when you moved
Oh,
out
God. Yeah. No, as like we moved from Flushing, Queens to Hicksville when I was like around 5 years old.
there?
And it was really cool. Like as a kid I played a lot of sports and just was making friends in the neighborhood really. And through going to school and you just meet kids with similar interests in you. And I had friends that lived really close that kind of started discovering music at a young age. And so we would, start getting into that. And there was just like, we were just like little troublemakers too. We were skateboarding,
Mm.
listening to music, going to, a cool record store that was near us once we started kind of discovering our tastes in music and stuff like that. And but yeah, it all just started by being kids into like running around outside, skateboarding, all that stuff.
Cool. And there was a lot of things, and some people will probably remember this place. Obviously, there was none of the above records out east, which I would always take a ride to because
Mhm.
I love that record store. But there was Looney Tunes, and there was other places, but it was Utopia, which was great for people in Nassau County, or specifically for us. Utopia had a lot of things there. There was
Yeah,
you
definitely.
walk, you walk in when you cut through the bongs and everything, and then you go down the
Yeah,
stairs. They were just like when you're an impressionable young teenager, and in your case, you were younger than that, walking
yeah.
in there and seeing all the CDs and the 7 inches and the records and the vinyl. They had pretty much everything. But you worked there too, from my understanding, right?
Yeah. So like I started going there probably when I was like 10 or 11 years old. I remember still being in elementary school.
Wow. Yeah.
And some of
Like
my
fifth, sixth
friends
grade. Mm-hmm.
would go about it and they would go to it and I eventually started going and at that time the I don't even know if Utopia is still around actually, but at that time the record store aspect of it was in the basement. And so like I said, we were just like young, annoying kids, like bugging the people at the counter. I think I remember like one of the guys that worked there in the record part of the store was this guy Rick that played in this band SAD
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. Um, and then there was just a number of other people, but they and Corey actually that plays in Corey plays in Orange 9mm now too, but he was working down there. He's a
Wow.
friend of mine. And but yeah, so we would, once we got into like punk and hardcore, and especially in the beginning it was punk. It was like we are going down there, digital music didn't exist at that time. So we were just finding stuff, basing what we were gonna buy off of the record covers or the thank you list of the bands that we did know that we liked and just start diving into it. And when I was like, I remember I was really young when I got my first job. I was bagging groceries actually in Plainview at ShopRite.
Okay.
Yeah, if you remember that.
Yes. Yes, I do.
And so, I was like 14 or 15 but I'm taking my whole check and I'm spending all of it at Utopia every
Mhm.
week, and that's where all the money went, or just buying food at like Broadway Mall or something, and just running around there.
Which is
But
like a ghost town now, Broadway Mall, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
heard
everything's closed with that. Yeah. Mhm.
exactly. But
Mhm.
but yeah, it was awesome. It was just and then yeah, so when I was about 18, I think I started working at the record store as well.
Mhm.
It was upstairs when I worked there, but and that was cool too because like I could have friends come by and they were dropping off records on consignment and it was cool, I think, especially to understand that aspect of this. And I actually don't when I think about like running a label and running and doing all this other stuff now, like I don't always go back to working at a record store in my head, but I was working at a record store, you know,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was getting records on consignment from like other bands and I kind of turned into that person that when I was 11 and there was that guy behind the counter being like, "Yo, check this out." Like I would do that too. So
Mhm. Mhm.
that's yeah, it's an interesting like pilgrimage, I guess, to like go from that kid to the record store guy for a second. It was only about a year and a half, I think I was there for. And then I started really touring heavily. But yeah.
But yeah, and you just said it. There was probably maybe not at the time little things that you learned
Hmm.
along the way. There's always like steps of things to learn in terms of where you
Yeah.
are, where you're now. So you were listening to music back then. You were getting into it like 10, 11 years old.
Hmm.
I know you were big into like hip hop as well, punk.
Definitely. Yeah.
Do you remember your first show though, your first hardcore show? Because the time that you were going, there was like the Ground Zeros, the Local Sevens on Long
Yeah,
Island.
definitely.
Deja One probably at that point in
Deja
time, maybe.
one was like probably like right before I started going to show.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But Ground Zero was it. That was like the first spot I ever went to. That I actually had a conversation about this, like more of like a kind of like a punk show that I went to, not hardcore, but the like first real like kind of punk show that I went to was actually at this place. I don't know if they ever did another show. But it was called Siberia, I think, in Farmingdale, and MXPX played. And I think it was
okay.
like MXPX and like the Hippos and this band like Gotti Hook or something. And Christian McKnight definitely booked it, I'm pretty sure. But um but yeah, that was the first show I went to. I was probably like 12, I think. Um and then yeah, then around that time, then I started getting into more shit and I couldn't tell you what the first hardcore show that I saw was, but it was I would say it's I'd say it's 99% it was at Ground Zero in Belmore. And then shortly after that spot, like I felt like Local 7 popped up and we
Okay.
started going there a lot. But it was like a bunch of Nassau stuff. Like Belmore was Ground Zero, Local 7 was what, Farmingdale. And then we would jump out,
Yeah.
we would always go to like what's Local 7 Farmingdale? I don't remember. There was more than one too. So maybe
Belmore.
one
Am I
was in
confusing
Farmingdale.
Local Seven? Is Local Seven Black Backstreet Blues as well?
No, locals
Was that
Backstreet
another
Blues,
place I'm
that's
confusing?
Rockwell Center.
That's
Oh,
Rockville Center.
we would go there a lot too.
Hmm.
And but then we would go to like Empire Discs. I remember like I would see
Uh,
Killer Idols there and I've see all like I remember seeing like Annihilation Time there and like Die Hard Youth and all this other shit and downtown that was Farmingdale. Um but then we would go into Suffolk too to see different things and you know like Village Pub South slash Broadway
oh yeah, yeah.
it's always been there. Like that's you know when I think about it, that's like the only venue that's always been there. You know, on Long Island
Mhm.
during my era, I guess. You know,
Yeah. So
so
with that, because I know you obviously you play guitar, but
mhm.
were you playing at that point in time? Did you start early on
Yeah, when
playing?
we were when me and my friend group when we were like between like 11 to 16, we were just starting bands like every other week and just like being like, yo, we like this now. Let's like play this style or like we like this. Let's play this. And we would just play shows in like random backyards and stuff. And it was just for fun. Like it was
Fun.
really just like that's it. It's just like, hey, we like playing music. We're, you know, we like writing music. So it was really just for the pure enjoyment of doing it and like
Mhm.
going to take your amps to someone's backyard and like beg your mom to drive you there
Yeah, yeah.
and then and play a show. And so that's yeah, it's like you know, that time frame, especially like when I was in like middle school and high school, it was a lot of that, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So Backtrack's obviously a little later on, but you
Hmm.
had some bands prior, right? Now, those some of
Yeah.
those bands that you started, and they were different styles, right? Like you had some
Oh, completely different styles.
right,
Yeah,
right.
like there was like a pop punk band. What like I like my first band ever when I was like 11 years old. We called ourselves the preschoolers. with like a Z, which is hilarious. And then I had like a pop punk band named like Chasing Amy. I had I'm trying to think of what other ones. There's a band that like a kind of more like post-hardcore band when I was like 15, 16 called The Road Home. Um, and then yeah, those are a couple of the ones, but there was like random ones that we would start, and just never do anything and stuff like that too. But yeah, those were like some of my first bands.
So while you were in the bands, I know I've heard you mention like you've toured with some bands too. You went out. Like, how did
Yeah.
that come about? Was that more of like a work related thing or just going out with your boys kind of thing?
No, it was like the first time I ever went on like a proper tour. It was like an East Coast tour, and it was a band from Levittown called Drawn in the Sky.
Hmm.
And we were all just friends. We had like all these friends in bands, and we would play like one of our spots that we would play is like Wantagh VFW or Wantagh Knights of Columbus or something. And there was like a bunch of us. There was like a band called Drawn in the Sky. There was like this band, the Madison Chase. Which I think ended up becoming like Yes Virginia and then Permanent Me. And then there was bands like one of my best friends is this guy Brian Rudder who plays in King Nine. He was in a band called like The Best Luck Summer.
Hmm.
And so we would all play shows together. We would all meet each other and like so that's why I went on tour with that band when I was 15, but it was awesome. I had such a good time. It was like my first kind of experience doing it. And I think
Yeah.
I was either 15 or 16 and I just kind of
Wow.
just
How long was that tour?
it
Do you
was like a
remember?
week and a half, two
A
weeks.
long time
But
though.
we went all the way down to like Miami and back, And yeah, it was, some of the shows got
I
canceled
was
and
gonna
some were
ask how many
torn.
shows that
Yeah,
happens,
but
right? Back then you
but it
go
was
down
awesome.
and
Like you're just fucking having a dope time and like, it's just fun. Especially at that age, you haven't seen much. So just getting off Long Island to me was a lot of fun too.
yeah, of course. So I
Hmm.
guess we'll fast forward a little to back. We'll talk a little bit about Backtrack, obviously.
Hmm.
That it's crazy that what is like 7 years ago now is your last show, give or take. Well, give it a little more than a
Yeah.
little less than that, maybe.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah.
Which is so we'll move up to when that started. So how did Backtrack come about? Was it
So
planned? Because or is it like how did that all come about for you guys?
yeah, there's actually kind of a lead up to it too that we didn't get to, but there was a band called. So basically, after high school, I didn't. I was debating going to college, and I decided not to. And
Hmm.
I think I was working at Utopia at that time, and I was also trying to go on tour again. And I didn't have a band that at that time that I could tour with or, from the sense of playing in it. But I was just happily down to go on tour with anybody, at that
Hmm.
time. And I just wanted to go see the world a little bit more. So, a friend of mine's band called The Fad, who was they're from Levittown slash Belmore-ish area. Levitt, yeah. And, they basically needed a merch person. So I went on tour with them. And then in the middle of the night on one of the tour dates, like their guitar player left the tour. And so then the band was
Wow.
like,
Oh,
hey, uh, you know, we're down a guitar player. Can you play for us for the rest of the tour? And I was like, shit, okay. So that kind of led to like playing that with them for like about another year-ish. And then there was a day that we were going from Denver, Colorado to Nebraska, and it was like it was in the middle. It was November, I believe, and it's like, 1 or 2 in the morning, and you're driving on this super icy highway in the middle of winter, at the start of winter, really, and the van basically hit black ice, skidded. We
oof.
flipped over a couple times, and definitely was like super close to death. Like if you kept going down the that highway, like maybe another couple hundred feet, the dip in between both of the lanes got worse and worse and worse. So it dipped down even more. And so that tumble or that crash would have just completely consumed us. So that was kind of
Scary,
like,
man. Jeez. Yeah.
yeah. So that actually but that to me was like, in my head, that's a big part of how Backtrack started, that crash. Because John, who played in Backtrack as well with me, we basically flew home from that. Not all of us came out pretty much unscathed somehow, and me and John flew back home from there, from I don't remember where that was, Denver somewhere. And then I remember January 1st, like 2008. That was like November 2007. January 1st, 2008, me and John got in his room and started writing Backtrack songs. Before we
Now,
had a name, but it was really
anything.
because it was like, hey, this is more of the style of band that I think that we want to be in right now, and this is what we're listening to and what we want to play. So let's focus our time on this because life is short, you
Yeah.
know?
After that, you have to have a different perception of things.
Yeah,
100%,
for
right?
sure.
So
Yeah.
that was actually my question with Backtrack. Is the style is obviously you have a lot of different musical tastes. You had
Hmm.
different bands that had completely different sounding than Backtrack. Backtrack's,
Yeah.
it's a Long Island sound, but it's New York hardcore, but like that
Hmm.
metallic sound, but unique to you guys. Super catchy. And I was going to ask, so it's like that was the discussion, like let's go for this kind of sound.
So it became it was two segments of friends, but it was like not even really because that Brian Rudder who plays in King Nine, he was playing he ended up joining Backtrack at that same time. So it was basically me and John and Vitalo and Brian Rudder, and we kind of like merged into one to like form Backtrack,
Got it.
and that's how that started. But really, I think we were pretty much on the same page of what our influences were, which was, very New York hardcore oriented.
Yeah.
And
Neat.
so like we felt like at that time within New York, it didn't, or New York and Long Island, it didn't really feel like people were playing more of a classic New York hardcore
Yeah.
sound. And that's what we wanted to do. There was a band before Backtrack started called Mind Piece that I felt like is a bit of a predecessor to kind of what we were doing. And then, you look around at kind of what was happening at that time too. And then, more regionally, I guess, within like the East Coast is like Trapped in Rice in 2007, putting out their demo, which was it felt very New York hardcore to me too, and all
Yeah.
of us. But like we were obsessed with that demo, and I think we were very obsessed with New York hardcore too, especially at that time, and we still are, to be honest. But it was very much like a decision of like this is what we want to sound like,
Yeah.
this is what we fuck with, this is what Backtrack will sound like. So,
Yeah. And it was great, obviously. So it took off and you put a couple of albums out in Bridge Nine.
yep.
Were you when this band started, because of the situation that happened with the van or the that you were in or the bus or whatever that you were in, was this just to start a band just to something to do? You wanted to play like that hardcore sound? Or was it like, no, we want to do this, we want to tour, we really want to go 100 miles per hour at this one?
I think because myself and John were already touring like almost full time, like in a way, yeah. Pretty frequently at least. Maybe not full time, but and then Vitalo was like he was roadieing for some bands and stuff too. He roadied for like Mind Piece and Guns Up and stuff like that. So I think that especially us three, we very much so wanted to like go hard with this. And we
Mhm.
wanted to play out of state. And obviously your goals are set like way smaller than like, hey, we're gonna be a band for 12 years and blah blah blah. But we did have goals of like, hey, we want to go play Pennsylvania, we want to go to Connecticut, we want to put out an EP, we want to put out a 7-inch, we want it to be on wax. Like those things were all things that we wanted. And so
Mhm.
that and it was, we kind of were all so focused and like and I think that also a big part of it was like our friends were like backing us so hard too that it was a big part of like our shows going off and like just the excitement behind the band was a lot due to them too.
Yeah, that's so important in the beginning, though, when you start, right? As your
Oh, hell
boys
yeah.
coming out, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a big thing because that kind of helps it build. When did you start seeing Backtrack was moving forward with this stuff and getting bigger than that local band kind of thing? When was like that first hit you?
Mm.
Because right when you're in a band and it's doing that, maybe sometimes, I'm not saying you weren't in the moment, sometimes you're just moving so quick with it, you don't realize these things are coming. But when did it hit you like, oh shit, man, we're really like it's taking off here?
Um, to be honest, I think our expectations were really low. So if anybody was like moshing when we were out of state, we're like, that was fucking sick. If we're at
Mhm.
Wallingford VFW in Connecticut or like playing like a bar in Wilkes-Barre or something, if like people are going off, and it could be fucking five people, we're like, that was dope, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if there was like a specific moment that was like everything's changing, like holy crap. I think it was just like a slow, and it always felt like a slow burn. It was never like a day and night thing for us that just like shifted completely. It was definitely a long grind,
Yeah. Yeah.
overall. But
Um,
I will say, like, especially at Long Island, we had just a great support system of friends that like would go crazy and do great. Just always hop in our van and come with like if there's if there's 10 people moshing in Wilkes-Barre, like we brought six of them to the show,
mhm,
in our
mhm,
van.
mhm.
So, but that's still sick,
Oh
so
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Right. It's all about the experience with that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was the two shows on Long Island in 2019, right? That's when it ended, give or take.
Yeah, those are our last two shows
Yeah.
ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to not to as we move here, like you guys knew it was that was the time, right? At that point, obviously it was announced that way, but like you realize like, okay, like I think we've said all we need to have said with the band.
I think overall, like, I think I don't know if everybody was ready to hang it up, but at the end of the day, I think it was the best decision to happen, whether or not everybody was ready at that moment.
Hmm, hmm,
Me being one of those people that wasn't ready, but I'm happy that it did,
hmm.
looking back
Yeah.
at it for sure.
Yeah. So now just, to get into the label and we'll talk a little obviously with the A&R Roadrunner for 5 years that you did that. But do you miss playing at all?
Um, to be honest,
'Cause you have a different seat now, obviously, the way
yeah.
you're doing it. So,
I don't like, and I
mhm,
mean that in like such a respectful way to people that play in bands. Like,
mhm,
I did it for a really long time, and to me, writing music was a lot of fun too. And like, if I were to ever get back into something, maybe it would be that.
mhm.
But I don't necessarily like my favorite part about touring was traveling and experiencing different cultures and communities and like neighborhoods and
Yeah,
food and all the great things that comes with traveling. And I still get to do that a
yeah.
lot these days. And so that itch that if I wasn't able to do that, I think I would probably miss touring more. But I feel like I'm always on a tour in my head,
Right, right, right.
like I'm like just kind of running around a bit. And it scratches the itch of like really wanting to be able to travel and see things and experience new experiences. And so, yeah. But I miss like experiencing those things for the first time with your friends. I miss those moments for
Mhm.
sure of like going to Australia for the first time and going to the UK for the first time and like being with your buddies and like like watching people's facial expressions when they see things for the first, just all of that, that's, great memories to have and yeah.
Of course.
Mhm.
So it's like a lot. You've always been into music. I mean, since you're 10, 11 years old. Like my son just walked in here. He's literally the age you were when you were
Yeah.
doing all these things, and so there's a lot of it like in terms of what you did, you built and grew with it, like it's business oriented. It is, and it's understanding music, which is an important piece. So the part when you worked A&R with Roadrunner for five
Mhm.
years, which is a long time, was that during the time of Backtrack, or this was when the band ended? You were like, okay, like I'm going to go move forward with getting involved within the music industry a little bit here, or was that something you always wanted to do? You know what I mean?
So yeah, so there's like a lot of overlap to be honest. Like with Flatspot, for example, like my friend Chase started that in 2004, and then Backtrack put out our demo with Flatspot in 2008.
Mhm.
And then I joined in as a partner with him in 2012. So
Okay.
that was happening like right in the middle of Backtrack. And then probably around like 2015 or 16. I really can't remember to be honest, but maybe it was 2015. Um, that's when I was able to get like this A&R consultant gig with Roadrunner. And that was essentially through Franz from Turnstile. He helps like kind of put me in touch with them and uh at that time they were looking to sign, Code Orange and Turnstile and I think that they liked that they were introduced, or they I felt like they needed somebody on the ground within hardcore music to really kind of understand all the different nuances and aspects of the genre, and I was at the right place at the right time. But I also, I also had a record label I was working on at that time, and was in a full-time touring band at that time too. So I think they kind of I'm glad they took a shot because, I turned it into something really cool for myself. But part of it was just being at the right place at the right time too.
Yeah, I'm sure obviously you brought a lot to that A&R job with this, just with like you actually said it with, and I agree. It's with those bare roots, that hardcore background, right?
Mhm.
Like which was really important. What from that, that 5 year run with Roadrunner did you pick up on it moving forward with stuff? Because you said you were ready to get the label off the ground. Like, what are some things
Yeah.
you felt like you took from it?
There's so much that I took from it.
Mhm.
It's like when I think about what I've outside of being in a band and touring for 12 years, that like I look at those moments like touring for 12 years and those like early days or those couple of years at Roadrunner that I was at as like my college. Like
Yeah,
I didn't go to
on the
college,
spot,
a
right?
bunch
Like,
a bunch
yeah.
of Backtrack didn't go to college, like, but I look at that as like we went to Backtrack college. And
Yeah.
so and I feel that way about Roadrunner as well. Like they taught me, I learned from like experts, in their fields of whether it's like Dave Rath, who's the A&R, Chris Brown, who's a marketing person there, Ross Anderson, who's a publicist, Cody Verdesis, who's another A&R, Mike Ligori, who's the A&R admin. Like, there's so many people that like very much took me under their wing and was like, all right, I'm gonna show you this, I'm gonna show you this. Like, and whether it was like them forcefully doing it in like a cool way, or just like me just being like them letting me be a wallflower,
Mm.
and just watch and understand. And like that's how I learned in the beginning. It was just like shut up, watch, learn, ask questions when you need to, but like be psyched that you're here to begin with. Because like I said, I didn't go to college. I didn't have like, a lot of the people that were getting jobs at those companies were like coming in from like the Bandier program and like different things
Mm.
from like Syracuse University or what have you. And I had none of that. So I felt like I was sneaking in through the back door, and like there was definitely this feeling of like imposter syndrome, when you get to like you're in Warner Music Group now. And but I definitely took everything I possibly could and learned and use that as like a tool within that building, but then outside of it too. When I say that, I was like basically applying all the good things that I was learning, or all these things I was learning from these great people, and taking it and bringing it into different aspects of my life, like Flatspot. So
Yeah.
I was taking digital marketing strategies and marketing plans and rollout, ideas, etc., and being like, hey, that's something I think I could use for Flatspot too. And there's definitely things that I was looking at. I'm like, I would never do that, and I'm not going to bring it here. But there was a lot of
Yeah.
good things that you learn, and I think so that was a huge, huge, huge learning experience. It wasn't one thing I could point to. It's like a million things I could
Bunch
point
of things.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Like I said, like you look at things both ways, things you would or wouldn't do, right? But like even that, you started talking about, there was like so many little intricacies of things that that were going on that helped you like obviously move forward with it. Quick before we move forward, like what would be a day in the life of that? Like when you're doing that, like is it every day, like every day was different? I
Every
know we're going
day,
back in time a little bit here,
yeah,
but
every day could be different. With A&R, that's where I wanted to focus all my energy, but I really wanted to learn about more on the marketing side too, because I think that that's such an important aspect of rolling out a record, and it's really the way you get records to people's ears at the end of the day. Like, so both those things were really where I wanted to focus my energy and time. And thankfully too, like they were welcoming with like different marketing ideas I would have, or bounce ideas off myself too from like somebody that's more on the ground level. Um, Sorry, could you repeat the question though? I'm
well,
losing.
just the yeah, like a day in the life of like
Oh, okay.
what it would be like.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I would just get,
Mhm.
get there at like 9 or 10 or something. Um, I would, you're checking your emails. A lot of it is, as A&R, you're especially like reaching out to different artists and trying to see what they're up to, find
Mm,
things early, and potentially bring them into the company. Once you do that from more of a scout perspective, then you're actually working records. You're trying to help an artist make a record too. So every artist is different. Some are like, hey, I know what producer I want to go to. I have all these songs done. I have this, that, the other thing, and some don't. So, at times you're like, all right, here's a list of producers. We think we could, let's
mm,
have conversations with some of them, et cetera. What do you like? What don't you like? You're trying to really just put these records together with the artist. And it's like I said, it's completely up to how they feel about it. But uh, I always love when people were collaborative and willing to kind of like hear opinions and
right.
work towards a common goal of like just making a great record too. So um, a lot of it is like that, if you're like, hey, we have to do remixes for this record. All right, let's talk to uh a different whether what's what is considered a remix this day. It's like that's a whole different question in itself. Do you get somebody to actually remix the record, or are we getting an additional vocal on this? Are we getting somebody to like reimagine a song and you get another artist to reimagine the song and you have the original vocalist on it? It could be so many different things.
Yeah, yeah.
But so every day was different. And then also like we were tapping in like it was fun too because we started to tap in like more people on like a brand partnership side. So we're like, you know, getting meetings with like Carhartt Work in Progress and blah blah blah. Like, just trying to expand the horizon of like what these bands are capable of, who they can work with, etc. And so it was, especially when you're young and you're in the music industry, I feel like you kind of walk into it and you're like, the world's my oyster. Like I'm
Mm,
so excited, and as it goes with a lot of careers, I think you get jaded over time. And I think some people
mhm.
do, but I never did. And a lot of the people that I worked with never did either. They were always excited about everything.
That's great. Right.
And it's, and passionate, I guess is the better word, because it's like, somebody might pass you a band demo that you're like, yo, this is not good, or this needs a lot of work. Like, but at least you're very you're very upfront about it and you're not beating around the bush. I would never want to
Mhm.
work with anybody who wasn't true to like um what they really felt, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's because the way I look at it is like if you get the opportunity to work in music, you have to remember I always looked at stuff from an artist mentality too. It's like I would never want to work with a label that wasn't into what I was doing, or I wouldn't want a publicist working my record that isn't into
Mm.
what I'm doing. So I think all of those things are that's a part of learning of working at a label like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that'll actually lead perfectly into Flatspot. And like honestly, like it's so like it interests me, like all this stuff and all the different things. You probably traveled. Obviously you would go to shows, but you would go, you'd be probably all over the place with
That's
that
a
as
part of
being
the
on the
A&R
road
stuff too, is like going to shows like a lot and
a
going to
lot.
events and meeting people and just meeting producers, meeting mixers, meeting like just a lot of networking. Because really what you are at the label is you're kind of like that you're the communication almost between the label and the artist. You're that kind of point person that's, you know, not only are you discussing all these things with the artist, discussing all these things with the label, but you're you're passing the messaging around to each other too.
Mhm.
So, but another aspect too is like you need to get your building, and by your building I mean like whatever label you work for, like excited, and you have to get it's kind of a science to it, I think, where it's like you got to get everybody hyped up on this release and understand it and like understand why this is the sickest band or artist that you work that they've heard recently and blah blah blah, and because it's obviously you want that regardless, but you got to get them even more amped up
Yeah.
so that they,
But it also strikes me the type of guy that like that piece excites you, like of like it's like this band
oh,
you're
hell yeah.
working with, right? Like that part
Yeah,
has to be
yeah, that's why I was saying I can never work with somebody I didn't like because I can't be the one getting people excited if I'm not excited, right?
100%.
You know,
Yeah,
so yeah.
yeah.
But
So
but yeah, in
yeah,
between, but shortly after, sorry to cut you off, I just
go
felt
go
like
go. Mhm.
to mention this too is that that at a point in time I felt like I did hit a bit of a ceiling at Roadrunner and there was some changes in leadership, so I decided to start like sniffing around with other companies and I landed on a company called Concord. That's a great company. They're one of the biggest independent kind of label groups. I'd say it's even more than that, but I ended up working there for 3 years too. And this is all during Flatspot at the same time too. Like even with Roadrunner, I was working at Roadrunner, but then also doing Backtrack and then also doing Flatspot at the same time too.
Busy. You're
Uh,
busy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Good busy. It sounds like you're enjoying it. That's the
Yeah,
biggest thing,
definitely,
right? Of
definitely. Yeah, but it was also like kind of setting myself up for life after Backtrack in a way too. So
course.
yeah.
hmm
Mhm.
hmm
But
So
yeah, with the Concord thing, I was there for 3 years and then and that was a cool experience too. I worked with like military gun over there with Loma Vista and but yeah, so then that eventually got to a point where things with Flatspot started moving so much that I really needed to focus my energy strictly just on the things that I had more control over, which was Flatspot and
right.
managing.
Which has always been big, but it's blown up, and it's kind of full circle, right? Like Backtrack had your first demo EP was put, was it first or give or take in
Yeah,
2007 or eight?
it was our first our first release ever, which was our demo, 2008 demo. And that was released on Flatspot 2008 and yeah, and then kind of working around and then running the label with Che in 2012.
Yeah. So how's that work? It's like the two of you, right? Your co-owners, both of you. Um,
Hmm.
how big is your offices are in Brooklyn, from what I recall, right? Like the office in
Yeah.
Brooklyn,
Yeah,
you're
we're
both
in
there, right?
no, so Che lives in Baltimore,
Okay.
and I'm in Brooklyn at our office. Where our HQ essentially is in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And so we're, run really everything out of here for the most part. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. How big is your team?
It's our team is about like 4 or 5 people, and then we have a couple of other folks that are kind of just work with us like monthly on like retainers, so like
Okay.
publicists and designers and stuff like that, bookkeeper, accountant, etc. So it's definitely a small team, but we've always had a small team, and I think that um I kind of prefer it like that too because I feel like everybody's is grasping all the aspects of what it entails to run a label rather
Yeah.
than like, hey, this person just does this, this person just does this. We're all kind of like, the right word. We all understand like all facets of what a record label, entails.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And it sounds like you had a great experience with Roadrunner. I'm going to use them for an example.
Yeah.
It's like you almost learned what you feel would work well, and it clearly is with
Mm.
your bands, with End It and
Thank
Speed
you.
and all these bands taking off like the way they are. And so that's the process. How does it go with you and Chief? Like, do you guys like? Do you have a goal in mind of how many records you like to put out for a year? It doesn't work that way. It's more about the feel of the band that you're looking at. And also, do you how long does it take? Like, is there bands you have your eye on, you see how they're doing, and then you kind of
Yeah.
talking with them? Like, how does that kind of work in
Yeah.
Flat
That's a
Spot?
good question. I think for us, it's always been like quality over quantity. So
Mhm.
I don't want to put out 20 records a year. Like
All
that
right.
to me, um, that to me shows that like I'm not focusing my energy on the right things, which is really pushing every band as hard as we can, So, the sweet spot for us, I feel like, is in the like 8 to 12 releases a year, I think
Yep.
is where we can really do some great work. And when we're talking about like, we talk every week and we talk about different bands that we think are cool, different bands that we have our eye on. I think it's very much so what you were saying. It's like there's a ton of bands that we're like, I wonder what this band is going to do next. I wonder if they're going to start touring. I wonder, and we try having those conversations with people that like we think are cool too, early on. But it's kind of like watching to see if they actually are capable of doing it like on
Mhm.
their own, because I think that actually is one of the most important things. It's like if a band can book their own tour, if a band can, put merch online and sell it and go on tour and, do a full US tour that they completely booked and uh write a great record which is number one, like
Right.
all those things are so important to being able to show people like what you're made of in a way, and it's how I learned too, it was like all those things we didn't have much help, back in the day.
Mhm.
So it was always like us doing the majority of the work for everything. So when I know that like once we're able to get in the picture, we can help amplify all those things for everyone involved. But it's always good to know that those things can get done, like, all those aspects of being in a band, or a lot of them at least are able to get done and by a band's willingness to like put in a lot of work, you know?
Yeah, which is obviously important, which is important, and what's cool now is, I know I'm gonna go back in time to when we were younger and we were going to shows. Everything is so accessible now, right?
Hmm.
Right. So it's like you could see clearly on a band's Instagram page or TikTok or Facebook, and that who's doing what, who's touring, who's releasing, which I would, I guess, on that aspect of, there's probably some things that hurt with that, but probably as a record label owner is probably a little bit is more helpful now that there's a, maybe too much access isn't too good, but you have the access to see what's almost going on with some of the bands that maybe you're looking at.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it's almost a double-edged sword at times. Like
Mhm.
it's like there's so much coming out every single day that like your brain can only consume like so much. And I think like, you know, you work in kind of like you work in a field where you're dealing with kids and seeing how they consume things on a daily basis. I'm sure that it's affected a lot of people in the way that they can think and the way that they can, understand everything too. And I feel like that just goes for the world at this point too. It's not just kids. And so um I think that we always try to remember like, hey, not everybody's going to see this one Instagram reel that you post. Not everybody's going to see this like one tour flyer you're going to post. And, so we kind of try to do things that will combat that idea of just having like one post for everything,
Yeah.
but it's, and it is a very different time, but I think you have to like be at the forefront of understanding how people consume things, and how people want to hear music, how people want to find out about a tour, instead of like completely pushing it down their throat and like being like, this is this, buy this, do this, go here. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
it's not really how we want to um, market our bands really, but I think that, the way that we have been doing it has been like a bit more respectful for that aspect of consumerism,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know?
It's one. It's fun. I don't think this has anything to do with the question I asked, but maybe in a way. But it's social media definitely helps. It's definitely different, and I
Yeah,
can speak for my band from the '90s when I would go to Utopia and None of the Above Records or
yeah,
Generation Records in the city and drop stuff off. Whereas now you can put it on Instagram. It's easier. It's easier for people to get your music. But
yeah.
really, when it comes down to, man, and you know this, right? It still all comes down to playing shows.
That's it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think like social media is so helpful with getting the word out
Mhm.
at the same time to combat what I just was talking about. Um, but touring to me is still like the best marketing tool that a band has at their disposal. And I don't know if that will ever change at least within hardcore and punk,
Yeah.
But that to me is like the best way to get the word out about your band is to be playing in front of people, humans
Yeah.
like are there in person,
Yeah. Something like too, like right with this kind of music, the culture, the style, all of it. It's live. Like look, it's great
Hmm.
to see a band on YouTube. It's awesome,
Yeah.
but it's nothing compared to going to see it live. Like it's
Yeah.
just yeah.
And of course, it's like, a lot of what we try to do is to get people at those places like on YouTube or Instagram, but then get them to go see somebody live, and or not get them to, but encourage them to go see them live. It's like it's such an important part of the genre, to do so. And I think when people go to a show for the first time or a hardcore show, like something in their brain just like completely goes off, and it's like it's like a snap in your brain that like you're like, oh shit, this is amazing,
Best
but
release.
or
It
it could
is.
be the opposite and be like, what the fuck are these people doing? I got to get the fuck home. Like, why am I here? You gotta go play Fortnite. But like, I don't know. So, like, I think for a lot of us, it was like a realization of like, oh damn, this is sick. I belong here. I need to stay here.
Yeah.
I need more. How do I get more?
Right. It's just like, and then it becomes every weekend.
Mhm.
So with the label, how do involved do you get with it? Because every band's different in terms of how
Mhm.
they handle things, their involvement in it, and stuff like that. You have some established acts though, but in general, how involved do you get with it in terms of artwork or ideas with things? And you were talking, with Roadrunner before with like producers and stuff.
Yeah.
You kind of let like the label, the bands and the artists kind of do that kind of stuff, or you're part of what you do here. You're putting it out.
Yeah.
Some input with it. What you think would benefit the record.
Yeah. I think it's always a conversation. It's kind of like I was saying of some bands like have a record and they are just like, yo, we want you guys to put this out, blah blah blah, etc. And I'd say more often than not, bands are super open to ideas, and we always talk about it too. And I'm like, listen, I'm gonna give you as many ideas as you want, but if any of them are stupid, you could be like, Ricky, shut the fuck up. And I will never get bummed out by that, because at the end of the day, it's like we're shooting ideas to each other and just thinking about how we can make something even better than it already is. And so that's that in itself to me is always a good thing. And so like I always like take any sort of ideas like that, whether it's from our team or from a band, and we just kind of talk through things. And it's like we talk through like the record making process. I mean, it's earlier than that too. It's like, there's bands that will send me demos and we'll talk about the songs and like what what they might be missing or what could maybe make them better, etc. Then when we get to the record process, it could be like, who do you have you guys thought about who you want to mix your record? Oh, I think here's a list of people. I think this person's great for this person's great for this, etc. Um, then we kind of get into the visuals and the visual aesthetic of the record and kind of what they want to convey through that. And that's, to me, all those things are so much fun. Like I love
Yeah.
talking about music. I love talking about like what makes music great and what makes music mediocre. I love talking about like the visual aspect of music videos, artwork, layout, design, those things to me, like the creative aspect of the label is really what scratches my itch. I'm not
Hmm.
a like we have a accountant and a bookkeeper and all those things, and like that is not what I want to do at all. But I have great people that I know that are amazing at that,
Yeah.
so they're
But
great
you
at
need
that.
that, right? Sounds like
Yeah,
that's
and
needed, right?
but you 100% need that if you
Yeah.
want to be able to be transparent with everybody and get people paid on time and all of that. So, but I know for myself, that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to be
Right.
able to pick up the phone and call like um, Body Web or Raw Brigade and just talk through like different ideas about, an album, or album cover or like a mix or whatever. So, and then after that, it's the marketing aspect of the record. And that I think, we kind of get into the weeds about like, what is the best way to present this record? How do we get it into people's ears? Because really I tell a lot of people this, and I think I must have heard it from somebody back in the day, but like, a lot of people like what I was told was like, recording the record, writing and recording the record is 50% of putting out the record. Like
Mm.
the other 50% is marketing the record, distributing the record, getting it to people, but 50% is that writing aspect and recording and getting it on wax. And then the other 50 is like how you get the world or get people to hear that work that you just spent, years on. And I feel, at sometimes when I'm looking out and I'm seeing some bands, it's like, hey, we just dropped a surprise record and we're like, we're a punk band from Minnesota and nobody's ever heard of us before. And it's like, who are you surprising? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you could, it could be beneficial to help get more people to hear it by maybe dropping a single, maybe doing this, maybe doing that. But at the end of the day, I respect anybody who writes and records music and is putting themselves out there to begin with. I think that's
Mm,
like a very vulnerable thing that not many people even get to that point, unfortunately,
yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Part of the marketing aspect also is, when do you know it's the right time? Like, so it's done, it's recorded, say everything's completed. How far out, when do you release it? Because it's that's the biggest thing you have to think of too. Because you even said it yourself or before, it's like there's so much out there now, right? So you have to look at, obviously, if other, like, let's say you're coming out with something and you're like, I'm going to go back to last year. Drain's coming out with their album in early November.
Mhm.
Maybe we don't want to go around the same time of that. Do you have to look at those things to try and like break things up for each band? Also, it depends on the style of the band, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I
So,
mean, I think that like some of our friends and other labels that we're friends with, I think, we're not necessarily, I don't think we're always communicating like, hey, what do you have coming out this day? What do you have? But I think through the grapevine, we're always going to hear about like the bigger releases that are coming out and what days they are. So I think it's always good when we kind of work together to make sure that each band has, a better chance of getting eyes and ears on their record. If we're not dropping on the same dates, but that only really comes with like, it doesn't, I feel like there's so many singles and stuff like that are going to be released throughout a campaign, that it gets hard to, you're not really talking about like every single one, but like for, I'm trying to think of an example, but like, like for example, like Raw Brigade and Agnostic Front, they were releasing records at a similar time, but
mhm.
we moved Raw Brigade slightly a little bit, I think, because they're touring with Agnostic Front. There's all this stuff happening at the same time. And I think it just was going to be able to help both bands too, by
Yeah.
we just shifted the dates a little bit. So we do that sometimes, for sure. What was the other part of your question? I'm sorry.
Think that was it. I was like, actually, a follow up to, do you get wrapped up in that part of it? Or
Um,
it's just as simple as like what you just did right there.
Yeah, it's
You know?
simple. It's just really I guess the other part of your question was like how do we figure out how long we need, et cetera, in a rollout and it's kind of like you can have a long lead, you could have a shorter lead. I think that especially in this sort of environment that I was talking about with like a bit of a shorter attention span, I think singles are a good way to
Yeah.
help bring excitement to an album or an EP because it will help create moments along a campaign rather than just being like, here's an EP, go check it out. You have singles where you can kind of like get a taste for the record before you get the full meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's, but we also have a certain strategy of how we like spacing things out. And then we also know kind of like how the DSPs, which the DSP is like Spotify and Apple Music and all those places, how they like, you know, what is going to work better algorithmically if, we space this out, or maybe we can get playlist support if we don't have these things jumbled on top of each other. So there's like just a lot, I guess, of kind of knowledge that we've kind of acquired over the years of like what will help for from a digital sense for a record.
Mhm. Yeah. Right. Which is, there's so many different aspects of it, right? That you have to look into. But it just sounds like you enjoy all of it, just the way you're even talking about
Yeah, no,
it.
like the rollout and all that, the campaign, all that shit's fun. I think
Mhm.
that working in music is a luxury. I think like my dad had to pass out fucking flyers on 50th and Broadway when he first moved to New York from
Mhm.
India. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So like to me, I get to work in music where nobody in my family has ever done that ever, and it wasn't an option to ever do that. So I
Mhm.
can't look at what we're doing now and ever look at it in like a weird light. It's because it wasn't supposed to even happen to me. And I
Yeah.
don't mean that like in a super dramatic way. I just mean that like that wasn't really an option,
Yeah.
in my head ever. So, but I think once when I was a kid, that's all I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So for me, like I think I said this on Toby's podcast, but I didn't, there wasn't a plan B. It was like, we're gonna do all this shit and it's gonna work. And like if it doesn't work, then fuck me, because I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. But I'm not making a plan B because we're gonna make all this shit work.
But it did. You're a hustler though, so you know that
Yeah,
that
man.
it
I
clearly
appreciate it.
was right, and that kind of leads into my next question a little bit.
And
Uh,
that doesn't, but I do want to say that like that doesn't mean that you're not gonna fail at things, you know? And it's like I failed in a lot of shit too, you know? So I think the people kind of
which
recognize
you
that.
learned from, right? I'm sure.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. But I want people to accept, I want people to understand that like failure is fail you should at times you should embrace failure because that's how you learn, you know? Um like it's through a lot of the failures that like I feel like have happened, whether it's like, Backtrack is on tour and we booked a show the wrong way or didn't do something right, or we just kind of weren't thinking about a specific thing. It's like now we can, now we've learned from that, and now we can help the bands that we work with kind of not make those mistakes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's a good thing to be able to kind of recognize is like, yeah, we fucked up here, but now we get to apply it in different ways of our lives that will help other people, you know.
Oh, absolutely. What do you see? So what's the plans for Flat Spot for the next, let's say, year or so, like the 2026 of any releases, and maybe there's some stuff you maybe can't announce, but
Yeah, there's a
some
bunch of
plans
stuff
there.
we can't announce at the moment
Mhm.
right now,
Mhm.
but there's a ton that's getting worked on right now. There's yeah. When is this coming out?
March 4th.
Okay, 6. So we're putting out a terror record, which I'm really excited
That's
about.
awesome.
Um, I think if it's March 4th right now, then the first single came out like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, Terror to me is like one of the bands that like are essentially our big brothers. They taught us a lot when I was younger and in Backtrack, and then
Mhm.
just being such a big fan of the band, I think they embody hardcore to the fullest extent, and so I'm really grateful that they decided to put out a record with Flatspot,
That's
and
awesome.
that's a big, very important record for our label in 2026, and we're working with other bands like Misery, who we've been working with for a long time, and then working with some newer bands as well. And then we're also going to be celebrating kind of the history of Flat Spot. The label's been a label now for over 20 years, and so there's going to be some things later in the year that we're going to be celebrating.
That's
Um,
crazy. It's like 20 years. Yeah. It's like, wow.
mhm.
You're
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah, so uh, we haven't announced any of that stuff yet, but there's going to be really cool stuff later in the year. And then just more releases. We're talking to a couple of new bands about signing them right now, and it's kind of just business as usual. It's like it's all the things that we've kind of been working towards and working in, but it's all very flat spot and very hardcore.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So, want to get into Matinee Sound in a second.
Hmm.
But do you ever get the chance? I'm not saying you don't do this, but it's like you have the Terror record, you have a lot of cool stuff, and I could just, this is an audio podcast, but I could see reflection in your face, like the excitement that you have of these things that you just like are
Yeah.
excited to get out there. Um, and it's 20 years now at Flat Spot. Obviously, you've been calling it for a little while now, and you have all these great releases and all this stuff. You ever sit back with it and be like, damn, we just put this out, like excited, like, like in the moment of that kind of thing that's going on? Or you can be in the moment, but you also got to keep moving forward because there's other releases
Hmm.
you have to put out.
I think on release day, yeah, like I'm like I feel
Like
accomplished.
celebratory. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
but that's about it. It's just that one day. But I think, through just like I said, like I look at all of this as a luxury, being able to like work on this label and do management and all these things that we were able to do. It's something that a lot of people don't get to do, so I'm very grateful that we
Mm.
get to do it overall. So that to me is awesome. But like, yeah, it's always just we're always moving on to the next thing. Like I guess in our brains, you know.
Yeah.
So you don't get to celebrate too much, but it's because you want to celebrate the next thing, you know.
Right. That's why it's successful though.
Yeah.
So let's talk Matinee Sound now. So obviously managing like Scal and Speed and End It. So is this all immersed in everything you've been doing here? Like that? How did that come about? And
Yeah, so
from
the
there.
idea kind of came because when I was at Roadrunner, some of the people I worked with, like, even though I was working there as an A&R, they were saying like, in addition to doing A&R, you should get into management. And I really, really, really did not want to. Like, I kind of was so against it. I didn't, I just, I kind of looked at some managers that I knew as like people I didn't really recognize myself within.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that in like, I guess I am saying that in kind of a rude way, but it is what it is. Like, but really what it came down to is there was artists that I was trying to sign to Roadrunner, and I felt like there was kind of a time where towards the end of my time there, where I wasn't able to really get much through, and it wasn't at the fault of anybody that I was close with there. It was just kind of just an overall company thing. And I was like, well, I really want to work with these bands, but it's not going to happen on like an A&R side or a label side. And I would hate to see kind of them misguide themselves too. So it was really just about like wanting to help people. And um, through that, and so essentially I got with Sammy Siegler, and me and Sammy kind of started this company, Matinee Sound. And Sammy like graciously, is focused on other things at the moment. So like I just do this management company solo now. And yeah, it's been fucking awesome. I really love doing it. And it's been like a big part of my life. I'd say it's as big of my part of my life as like Flatspot is too, you
Yeah,
know?
you got
Um,
some big bands too you're working with.
Yeah, and again, it's like, for me, it's like I don't want a ton of clients. I want, and I hate even using that word. I don't want to work with a ton of bands. I just want to work with a couple that I really believe in,
Yeah,
and that I identify, as great people too. And so, that was kind of the main catalyst for doing that. It was kind of just like my friends encouraging me to do it, and so yeah, it's been great so far. And like I said, I've been able to use a lot of the tools and resources that I've like made just over time, from playing in a band to working at a large label to running a label, all those things, at working at a record store, like
all of it.
all the things that culminated over the past, I just turned 38, so I guess 38 years. Yeah.
Yeah. You also like probably learned some things not to do along the way that you like
Oh
incorporate
yeah.
within,
No, no,
right?
that's a part of it too. It's like I was saying with like, you know, all the failures and stuff that one may have within their lives, like you turn that into a lesson. And so like I've definitely learned many lessons, and I think that it's good to it feels good to share those too with people, so that you can kind of you can avoid you know the longer road to where somebody might need to go to. They can kind of like not have to deal with the BS that comes with just trying to make it happen. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is where, you get to tour and without
Yeah, and
the
it's like
playing
I
piece,
don't,
right?
I just really go and pop in and out,
If
and
not on everything, obviously.
yeah,
But
and for me it's like it's fun. It's like a tour cheat code for me. It's like, oh, I can go to
yeah, Georgie.
I want to go to Mexico City. All right, Speed's going to be there. All right, let me bring my wife and let's have like a little trip over there
Make
and have a
something out
good
of it, of
time.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that to me is a lot of fun, but it's also, it's still work at times, but it's always fun to me. There's nothing about it that's not fun.
One last question, and then I'll have a bunch of questions that are like a this and that kind of thing with no
Yeah.
semblance of order. So, um, with this, so like with the label, with the management, the Matinee Sound, I'm sure it doesn't work this way, but do you ever? It's like, right, Mondays I got to really focus on the label. Tuesdays I'm going to be doing the managing stuff. Does it work that way? Like, no, like stuff will come up, or you kind of got to mix and match how you're doing things.
You got to mix and match. There's certain days of the week that I focus on like specific things. Like a lot of times, for example, we'll release singles on like a Wednesday. So
Mm.
a lot of Wednesdays I'm like focused on, a lot of Tuesdays I'm focused on just making sure everything's ready and we're all good
Right.
to go and blah blah blah. Wednesday morning I'm gonna need to be on point and like ready to go, and social media and blah blah blah, etc. Same with like pre-orders. A lot of times we'll launch on those days. Fridays a lot of times is like release day, for an album. So kind of always works like that, but every day is different, you know. Like right after this call, I have a call with some folks in Australia, and it's 6 p.m. here, but it's, you know,
You know
9
what?
9 or 10 a.m. there. So
Yeah, I was like,
uh,
what time is it over there? Yeah.
yeah, but a lot of yeah, so but you know, we're dealing with bands in Australia, we're dealing with bands in the UK, we're dealing with bands in
Global. It's great.
Bangkok, Thailand. So there's no like I'm on 24 hours a day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think which, you know, which I don't mind, you know, but there's structure without complete structure because it's like if I were to do it, then if I were to plan out every day to a T, it would
It
not
won't work.
end up the way that it needs to.
Yeah, it won't work. All right. So here are a bunch of questions. Again, they're all over the place in terms of order. First thing that comes to mind, obviously, if you want to elaborate, go ahead. An EP or a full length?
That's a hard question. I'll tell you why too. I have this conversation a lot these days. Um, it's funny because I feel like a full length solidifies a band in time, and it's like it is something I feel like everybody should strive for eventually. Doesn't mean that you have to put out, I don't even encourage people to really put out a full length on their first release. I kind of say don't do that, but I do think that the strength of EPs has grown more than it ever has. So I feel like a band could completely pop the fuck off of EP, and I've watched it happen multiple times,
Mm.
especially in the past couple of years. But I think that the noise that you will make off an album, you can't make that amount of noise off a great album. You can't. You, you would have to like if you have an EP pop off and then you wrote an LP that's gonna pop off, that is the most amount of noise. It wouldn't be two EPs that would give you the amount
I agree.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
It's a there's no yes or no to that in my head.
Mhm.
It's like it has to be a specific way, potentially more so for it to really like make the most noise to me.
Cool.
Mhm.
Again, like I said, all over the place. Most memorable backtrack tour.
Shit. That's a good question too. Most memorable backtrack tour. All right, there's a couple. The Terror second time we ever went to Europe, it was with Terror on a bus, and we're like 21 years old, and we're having the best time we've ever had. We're on a bus. We're like, why the fuck? How did we get on a bus? This doesn't even seem fair. Um, and it was just like experiencing that country with that band and like having a great time, like, you know, spending time with Nick Jett and then talking about how, you know, getting him kind of in the seat to produce Darker Half. I remember on that tour was like exciting too. But then another tour that always sticks out to me is the Trapped in Rice Big Kiss Goodnight tour. And that was with our friends like Take Offense and Trapped in Rice. And
Mhm.
that was fucking awesome. It was like a full US one. But like that record, the Trapped in Rice Big Kiss Goodnight album, is fucking amazing. It's such a good album. So I'm really grateful that they brought us on that one because just a cool moment in time. I felt like you know, there was a lot of cool stuff that all three of our bands were doing and it all kind of came from a similar community, which was like Reaper Records at that time. And a lot of the energy that I want to recreate with Flatspot is kind of it reminds me of my experience when, you know, Backtrack was on Reaper and there was great bands on that label like TUI, Take Offense, Turnstile, Naysayer, Fire and Ice, etc. You know?
Mhm. Cool.
Yeah.
They're great tours, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh, Favorite backtrack song to play live? Like when that one was coming.
Um, damn. I think I think I don't know, Darker Half to me to is just like kind of like just a really dope riff and it always gets people moving and stuff. So I think that one probably.
Okay.
Hmm.
Little Long Island hit band, which I know fan of. Favorite Kill Your Idols record.
Ooh, fuck. Damn. That's a hard one. Maybe from companionship,
Mm,
right? From companionship to competition, I think. I like that record a lot. Um, some of the earlier ones are sick too, you know?
yeah.
Like even some of the splits too. like that they did. They did like a million fucking splits, and I
Yeah.
always love the splits that they did. But let's say that one for now, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
A release as a label owner that you've put out. I'm sure you're proud of all of them that you put out. You're really like, oh, this is I'm really proud. Like this one, psyched that this one came out.
Favorite that Flatspot put out?
Yeah, yeah. Or you know what? We could actually you could open it up, make it even bigger. But if there's anything you put out, you're like, wow, like we psyched to put this one out.
Damn, that's a hard one too. I'm like looking at our wall. There's like it's all these records
Oh,
here.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, damn.
Sounds like that upcoming one you have. I mean, I know it's
Yeah,
a
to be honest, I
right.
think it's Terror right now.
Yeah.
I like that to me is a culmination of like
I'm hearing about the
learning.
tour that you had with them.
Yeah,
You know, it's like
like yeah, the way that in the beginning of Flat Spot, I felt like we were like a demo label to people and to us too at that time. We didn't maybe have the confidence at that time to like be like feeling like we could do a band's second or third record or even an LP or whatever. And I feel like we've worked really, really, really hard to get to a point where a band like Terror that's been around for over, 20 years is um it wants to do their album with us, you know?
yeah,
So to me, I think that's like a really grateful feeling, like I was saying earlier. So I'd say this new Terror record.
cool.
Yeah.
Digital or CD?
Oh man. Vinyl, to be honest. I'm gonna avoid the question, but yeah, I don't know. I like CD. CDs break. They're just. I got
They
this one
do.
today. It's broken in the corner. I'm like, God damn it. Vinyl
Hmm.
breaks too, but I'd rather hold like a big piece of vinyl and be able to not squint when I'm like trying to read through the lyrics and stuff, you know?
And the packaging and artwork on vinyl
Yeah.
is incredible. Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree. Your favorite scene outside of Long Island?
Um, I mean, I've always had like a lot of friends in LA. Um, and so I love being over there, and I think the scene and some of the best shows I've ever been to have been in LA too.
Hmm.
So I think LA, but I mean, on a global scale, there's so many great scenes. I think the Bay Area is sick. I think when Backtrack was coming out, like Wilkes-Barre was a really dope scene. Um, Baltimore is a great scene. Sydney, Australia has a great scene, especially right now. Like
That must
Bangkok,
be popping off right now at speed, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Bangkok, Thailand has always been dope. Leeds, I always loved in the UK. So there's so many across the world that like I feel like I've got a lot of, you know, chances to experience that have been really cool and like very welcoming. And all those ones are ones I really love.
Cool. I know you go to a lot of shows. What was within the last year, like hardcore show you attended last year? You're like, oh, this is a good one.
I went to a show on Friday that was sick. It was like my first time back on Long Island in a second. And it was King Nine and Pain of Truth at
Massapequa VFW.
Massapequa VFW, and it was sick. I had a
I had a
great
wedding, so
time.
I couldn't go to that. It
Uh,
looked awesome, though. I saw
It
some
was, yeah, it
clips.
was sick. It was just, those are all our friends, and it was just like a really cool vibe, and everybody was having a good time, and so that was great to see, especially with it being on Long Island too.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, a couple more. What did you listen to last? And not elevator music or like you walked into CVS and heard
Uh,
something. What was the last thing you put on that you actually listened to?
I could tell you, I'm pulling up my Spotify right now. What did I listen to yesterday? I was listening to um the band Nothing. They have a record they're rolling out. So I was listening to that yesterday, and I was listening to the new Angel Dust album too that's coming out on Friday. So those two I'm very excited for. I like both those bands a lot. I respect both those bands a lot, and the music is really good for, just thinking we were talking about it yesterday, like both those bands have been around for a while now, and they're both still putting out great music, and
Mm,
that to me is so dope. Love it.
cool.
Mhm.
Okay, the last one here, man. Your top three, or if you have four, it's obviously fine. Your most influential albums for you. It doesn't have to be hardcore. Because I know you have a lot of different like taste in music.
Damn. Um, I'm looking at my most
Yeah.
most listened to records. Fuck. Um, I would say most influential.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give three that are just like across the board, I think. that are all over the place probably. But I would say Bad Brain self-titled has
Mhm.
got to be one. Um, I would put Mobb Deep, the Infamous, number two, and I would put fuck, this number three is gonna fuck me up. Maybe Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, number
That's
three.
definitely three different. That's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
I think that it covers a good
Cool.
spectrum of shit.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Ricky, thanks so much, man. Great conversation. Could have, honestly, there's still so much more to talk about, but it was just so awesome. All the stuff that you're involved in, and the future of everything, which is a lot more to come. Anything you want to end with before I sign us off here?
No, just thank you so much. I'm psyched. It was good to like get to chat with you too. I mean,
Yeah.
being like, a town over for me my whole life too, which is sick. But yeah, 516. There we
Yeah.
go.
All day. All right. Thanks, Ricky.
All right,
Hang tight.
man.
Let me just sign
Peace,
us off
brother.
here. Thank you for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. Go save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify that features all bands that were on the show. For more information on future episodes, you can go to my Instagram account and follow at What Lies Ahead _ podcast and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead. See you on the next episode.